This episode explores a transformative journey of embodiment and non-dual realization. These practices, when integrated into daily life, foster a deeper sense of wholeness and oneness. The journey is continuous, with senses becoming more refined, love and compassion more accessible, and the body finding greater balance and relaxation. Challenges like pain and emotional turbulence are natural, but resilience grows, enabling a return to comfort and safety. Embodiment is a gradual process, requiring consistent mindful practice. This personal journey involves exploring inner depths and attuning to the surrounding world. It emphasizes that each individual is their own teacher, encouraged to approach the process with gentleness, patience, and love. Valeria interviews Judith Blackstone, PhD. She is the founder of the Realization Process, a method of embodied psychological and relational healing and non-dual spiritual awakening. Judith teaches workshops and teacher certification trainings worldwide and online. She was a psychotherapist in private practice for 35 years, and before that, a professional dancer. The realization process includes practices for stabilizing and non-dual realization, as well as a method of recovering from trauma called healing ground, and a method of embodied movement called stillness moving. She is the author of several books, including Trauma and the Unbound Body, The Healing Power of Fundamental Consciousness, The Fullness of the Ground, A Guide to Embodied Spiritual Awakening, The Enlightenment Process, and Belonging Here, A Guide for the Spiritually Sensitive Person. Her latest book is The Embodiment Workbook for Women, Feeling Centered, Grounded, and More Fully Alive. Meet Judith at realizationprocess.org. Here's the interview with Judith Blackstone.
Aloha, everyone. This is another A Quest for Wellbeing podcast interview, and my guest today is Dr. Judith Blackstone. She's the founder of the Realization Process, a method of embodied psychological and relational healing and non-dual spiritual awakening. Judith teaches workshops she's also teacher certification training and teacher certification trainings worldwide and online. She was a psychotherapist in private practice for 35 years, and before that, a professional dancer. Oh, professional dancer, right. I read this before in your bio. That is so wonderful. She's the author of several books, including Trauma and the Unbound Body, The Fullness of the Ground, The Enlightenment Process, and Belonging Here. Her latest book is The Embodiment Workbook for Women, Feel Centered, Grounded, and More Fully Alive. So this is one of the main topic of our conversations, your latest workbook, Judith.
Yes.
But there's a lot more. There's so much more about you. So I just read here a piece of your bio. The full bio will be at the end, and also the podcast notes. So the question that I usually begin all my interviews, for some reason never left me, is the fundamental question of identity. Who is Judith in this very moment? How would you introduce yourself?
Well, so many levels. You know, we used to do a spiritual practice of where you ask your partner, "Who are you? Tell me who you are." And
Yeah.
after 5 days, you know, you're nothing but space and light. Nothing but wide open consciousness. But of course, there are many other details. I am a teacher. I'm a therapist. I live in a beautiful place in upstate New York. I have a wonderful marriage.
Yeah.
Those things.
That's wonderful to hear. All those things are wonderful to hear as well. The experiencing in the body, in the mind. I love the subtitle of your book. I mean, the title is just so inspiring. The embodiment. This is something that I have been hearing over and over and over again. Spiritual embodiment, all kinds of embodiment. But I love the subtitle that explains what it might be for most of us, feeling centered, grounded, and fully alive. So, talk to me for a moment about these concepts. I know you mentioned ultimately we are light, and a lot of people actually say that. So many of us have the intellectual understanding, or maybe sounds really wonderful to say that too. So we do love saying that. But what would that? I would love to hear from you. What would that look like, feel like on a day-to-day basis, moment to moment? This embodiment of spirituality, or what we are as a whole.
Yeah. So embodiment has a very specific meaning in this work, which is called the realization process. And the work really is about uncovering in ourselves, which we can do, a very subtle, undivided experience of consciousness. I say experience because I don't, the word would be dimension, but that's like a metaphysical assertion, which I really try to keep away from. But on an experiential level, we really can uncover this seamless consciousness that pervades both our body and our environment at the same time. And that we do through a series of practices. And pretty much everyone who comes to work with me finds that they can do that attunement. Now, embodiment, the word embodiment, for many people, it simply means being aware of your body. But in this work, it means something a little different. It means actually living within the body. And that's really mind, body oneness, absolute oneness, so that you feel that you're made of the consciousness that's everywhere in the body. You feel that you're made of consciousness. And it might sound far out, and it might sound like, oh, too lovely to be true. But in fact, it's not. And it's not that hard to get to at all. And we go through it very methodically, inhabiting each part of the body, inhabiting the body as a whole, finding the space outside of the body, the space in your environment, and then attuning to the experience that it's really one undivided space, pervading inside and out. Now that's a spaciousness. It can be experienced as light. And I think that is spoken of in pretty much all the spiritual traditions. And my sense is that when these great revered masters talk about these things, it's not because they feel like, oh, they're the only person ever to experience this. It's because it's available to all of us. So that's what it means. And grounded, it means that you're connected to the earth, to the floor, right? If you're inside, to the floor, that you're settled within yourself, rather than lifting up away. Like, when we're anxious, we feel like our heart is in our throat, right? There's that upward lift. But when we're grounded, we're settled downward within that embodiment. You want me to keep going? Because I can keep going.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know. Keep going listening to you. Sounds, again, it's also my own experience because I have been doing a lot of these, kind of engaging in these practices. Mostly, I keep it very simple in a sense of being present in the moment, being here right now in this timeless, really, moment, spaceless space. There's no ground in a sense. Actually, it's a groundless to reality. But for me, has been very simple. As soon as I am in the moment, like having, and the interesting thing, Judith, like having, I don't know what it is, but having these conversations or having meaningful, deep conversations with anyone here on the podcast or, outside, anywhere, it just gives me that sense of that you speak of groundness, of ground, feeling grounded. Do you know why that is? Is that because my mind feels more comfortable within the kind of engaging with these topics and kind of almost like honoring the sacred? Is that?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Valeria. You're saying when you feel grounded, you feel heavy? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no. When I have these conversations, when I am having meaningful conversations, it could be even about psychology, but mostly about non-duality or spirituality. I feel very grounded. So I'm wondering if there's something about the mind here that is almost like, it might be, it's purpose, its direction, its orientation. And then it feels like it's honoring something that's timeless, that's infinite. It's
Yeah.
almost like the finite honoring the infinite. And then it feels so grounded to me. And
Yes.
I'm wondering if that makes sense to you
Yeah,
somehow.
absolutely. Absolutely. And we're talking about really embodying that as an ongoing all the
Right.
time, right? No matter what we're doing or who we're speaking with, that we can just find
Mm,
that in our body. And we
mm,
can definitely call it sacred. I'm all for that. But it's simply a matter of like settling within yourself. And we get to
mm,
that very, very fine consciousness that's
mm.
seems to be already there. We only uncover it, and there it is. And yes, and so the subtitle of the book, grounded, centered, right, and more
Yes.
fully alive. So the centered is that being able to know yourself all the way through the depth of yourself, right? Not just on the surface of yourself, but all the
Mm,
way through the depth. And then we get to that really innermost focus that we can not only find, but we can live there. And that's what I mean by centered, right? And then we have this
right.
deep, wonderful perspective on the world around us.
Yes. What's not to love about the concepts? Again, for some of us, it becomes an intellectual idea, a beautiful idea that we just repeat, but we don't know how to live it. And that's why the word embodiment is very important. And it would be incredibly helpful if we can come to this living sense of being here. So, what is the realization process? How does it get people to kind of embody that? Is that a gradual? It's a process, or can we somehow realize that and just live it from that moment?
The realization comes in gradually, but the initial attunement anyone can do. We can experience it right away, right?
Okay.
It's the difference between being like aware of your hands now in the moment, if you become aware
Yeah.
of your hands, and then
Mm.
entering into them, right? And we can all do that right
Mm.
in the moment. We won't
Mm.
stay there. It won't
Your hands.
stick. But
Yes.
that ability to be there all
Yeah.
the time, that's what we call realization. And that is a gradual process. But we do this attunement very methodically, the series of practices, series of attunements. And then after a while, and of course the time frame is different for different people, after a while you find you're just there. And then you've realized it. You don't have to work at it anymore. But at first you do. You have to refine your focus, live within the body. Takes a little bit
Mm.
of takes a little bit of concentration.
Mm. Yes, in practice. Right. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Because a lot of times we have this almost like this feeling of anxiety around getting to a destination. It sounds so wonderful. I want to get there today, tomorrow, and as soon as possible. And that's not being very realistic. It takes practice. It's almost like it seems to me an unlearning process. But talk to me. You have not really mentioned the mind or the soul, the spirit, those those ideas or concepts, or who knows, maybe part of our being. So I noticed the word consciousness and then the body. You keep kind of going back and forth those two realms. Is there anything between? Like, what's the role of the mind in consciousness connecting to the body?
The thinking mind, yeah, is what you mean,
Yeah.
the intellect?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that can certainly either get in our way, or it can
Yes.
it can move. Our thoughts can move through that spaciousness without disturbing the spaciousness, and that's of course
Mm,
what we aim for. And I think most meditation techniques will also teach that. To after a while,
right.
that you can just watch your thoughts move through like fish swimming through an ocean, rather than
Right.
getting caught up in them. There is
Right.
a psychological component to this embodiment where we actually constrain ourselves, constrict ourselves in reaction to painful circumstances growing up. And that kind of obstructs our full embodiment. So at the same time as we're doing these attunement exercises, we're doing that psychological work. And those constrictions in the body are tied to beliefs, right? To thoughts. And so all of that gets healed at the same way, in this, the same time, in the same way as we let go of those ways we've protected ourselves through constricting our body. Then we also get to see whether the thoughts connected, whether the feelings connected, whether the memories connected with that, and to get to resolve them. To we don't get rid of them, of course, but we encompass them, and then we can embody ourselves even more fully. And that means what? It means we have even more access to our love, to all of the qualities of our being.
Yes, I love that, Judith. The integration, I think they call it. Young used to call is it wholeness?
Yes.
So being a complete being, a whole being. So yes, what about the concept of the soul, the spirit? Is that something that you touch upon too within your work?
In the work that I teach, I try to keep away from metaphysical concepts. For example, this consciousness is an experience, and I talk about it as an experience, and it is something that we can actually experience. So, and that's why I call it consciousness, because that's how it's experienced. Now, many people will look at that same spacious, illuminated space, undivided space, and say, "Oh, well, that's divinity. That's spirit." And I'm certainly fine with that language, but to me, that gets into more sort of saying, "Well, there is a soul, and the soul goes on after death," and I don't know anything about that, because I haven't experienced it.
Yes, thank you. Wow, it's fascinating to see how many concepts we have created within the world, the intellectual world, psychological world, the world of the mind. Because these are topics that I often talk about, and I have been learning about the soul because my foundation is Zen Buddhism and also Advaita Vedanta. So that's undivided. It's actually everything is happening. Consciousness, only consciousness exists. Only God exists, nothing else but consciousness. So it's really the way I kind of been almost like making peace with all these pieces, per se. It's just by being playful with them. I tend to be very playful with the thoughts, memories, even the unprocessed traumas when they show up, and relationships, people, everything, the work I do. So, I don't know. Is that an approach that you have heard before? That taken. I think Zen Buddhism has taught me a lot about sense of humor and taking everything light.
Oh, I think it's very important to be playful, and I think it's very important to approach our memories with curiosity. Not compassion, but also like curiosity, and that's the playful part of it. I think.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. I love learning those new things. And that's why I asked you about the soul and the spirit and all those things, because it sound like a lot of fun to me. It has been very playful to think about the soul as this journey. And I mean, it's almost like storytelling, isn't it? A living story. There's something about that. And recently I met somebody here on Kauai that said to me, he's an astrologer. And he said, I've studied everything, all about spiritual concepts. I mean, I went deep into everything. And finally, he said that maybe God just wants to tell a story, through us. Maybe it's all about storytelling. Maybe we're just here to experience whatever it is that we experience uniquely and then tell the story. And that was so much fun. I had a lot of fun with that idea.
Yeah, that's a lovely idea. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Leela, we have the concept of Leela. Do you have that in Advaita Vedanta?
Lila, yes, they do talk. It's more Tibetan Buddhism that talk about Lila, I believe. Yeah, but
not
in
in
Advaita
Buddhism,
Vedanta
but in
too.
Hinduism.
It's Maya. Yeah, Maya, right.
So these are leelas, God's leela, his play. That they say that the world is his leela, his play.
Yeah, yeah. I love the idea. It's like if everything's an idea, if everything's a concept, I love that one. The idea of playfulness, lightness, curiosity. In this way, I feel like we come much closer to this open space that we really are. We really kind of touch. It's almost like a dance again. We're just going back and forth, infinite, infinite, kind of coming together as a whole. But I can't help it. So let me go back to your work, because I could just kind of play around these topics forever. Let me see what makes the type of embodiment spiritual. So gosh, there's so much about your book. So talk to me about the intention for writing this book, your latest book. That's titled, if I can get it in front of me again, is titled The Embodiment Workbook for Women. Why for women? And another question that I want to ask you, do you have also a specific kind of age in mind to engage with your work?
No, any age. The people who come to work are really all ages. We have people in their 80s, and maybe that might be the oldest, people in their late 80s, but also young people. And more and more young people are coming into the work, which makes me very, very happy. So, no, any age.
Good.
Yeah.
So any age. And why do you only work with women, Judith?
Oh, no. I work with women and men. I wrote this book for women just because being female interests me, and I wanted, this is one of the last books I'm going to write. I've written 8 books, and this is going to be one of the last ones. So this is just something I've really wanted to express, only because I am a woman, and there are certain constraints. I think in general, I think our society is dealing with these societal constraints on both genders, and I think definitely think men have as much limitation put on them as women do, but they're a little bit different, right? The limitations are a little bit different. So, so I wanted to write this just for my own fun, to talk about my experience of being female and, the kind of release, the kind of work that I've had to do in order to be my full self as a woman.
Yes, honoring that too, right? This of being here in a female body. That's beautiful. So I'm curious about the backstory of you. How did this come to be? This person, this being that I'm having a conversation now. How all this came together? Would you call it? I have been asking this question lately, almost like destiny, choice, guidance. What would you call that?
Yes, it's really hard to weed out those different strands, isn't it?
Right.
It's really, that all seems like one process to me. Certainly things happened, that I didn't, at least wasn't aware of making happen. And, and those events really taught me a lot and formed my life in a certain way. And then, of course, there were also choices, things I was attracted to.
Yeah. Yes, I have well, I'm kind of getting closer to this understanding. I will just say it to you and see if that makes sense. That it seems to me like everything is a concept, right? The spirituality, God, sacredness, all that we actually kind of come closer to as we experience more and more suffering and pain at the level of psychologically, emotionally, and physically. I noticed how that opens the door for this. So is that something that's already, in a sense, Judith, is already almost like embedded? It's already innate of our being to have some cracks, almost like in those other parts of us that are not, let's say, fully real, so we can reach and we can be in touch with the spaciousness, the consciousness that we really are. Is that something that you see as a
Well,
as
that's
truth?
certainly that's a beautiful philosophy, a teleological philosophy that, there's something pulling us towards this consciousness. That certainly may be the
Right.
case. I don't know. I have no way to know that.
Right. Huh. Or I was about to, like, waiting to hear, maybe we will say, we're already that, even if we felt like we were not there. But that's really the ultimate truth, isn't it, Judith? We are always that consciousness, pure
That
consciousness.
is
Always.
also possible. And I very much love that philosophy, that this Buddha nature is innate in us. And many of the great teachers have said that. And it certainly seems in my work like what we're doing is uncovering something rather than
Mm,
creating it. So
mm,
so
yeah.
I would, if I had a guess, I'd say yes, we're already that.
Right. Yeah, that really resonates with me. Something in the body, my entire being kind of really resonates with this idea. I cannot explain why, how, but when I heard somebody say, well, the most direct way is you're already what you're looking for. You are God. Now, if you want to know more, then there's a whole unpacking of that. That's basically how Vedanta starts with the teachings. You are already what you're looking for. That's already it. This is it. And then now if we become curious because of suffering or whatever it is, then we just kind of dive into it. It has been my case.
Yes.
So yeah. Yeah, Judith, you're about to say something. Sorry.
No, that's been my experience too, that it took some suffering, it took some work, so it may well be that, we're already that, but still it took some work to realize it.
Yeah, and that's the paradox, right? That
Yeah.
we are already here, but we have to take a plane here or a bus here. How is that possible? Well, that's why, yeah, Leela, it goes back to the playfulness again. That's another beautiful concept too, which feels very real to me. What about? I would love for you to talk to me about some of the contents of your book. Really, kind of caught my attention too. Talk to me about the core breath. Is that a practice? One of your the main
Yes, that's one of
practices?
the main practices. There's two main practices in the realization process, and all the other practices are based on those. And the core breath is one of the two main practices. And that's that centering, right? That's that
Yeah,
focusing deep, deep, deep inside. We get
yeah.
a very, what feels like a channel. Now, I'm not saying there really is a channel
Mm.
there, but it
Yeah.
feels like that. It feels like a very subtle upward current of energy. And it feels like
Yeah.
when we get to that internal depth of ourselves with that very subtle focus and we get some
Mm.
breath there, we can live there. We're living in that core of ourselves. And that's our portal into that all pervasive space.
Wow, that's beautiful. And we hear that all the time. How the breath is the entrance. The breath is how we connect. I mean, that has been taught for so long, but we tend to forget, don't we? It's so easy because we take it for granted. It happens naturally, automatically, and then we kind of lose. We don't pay attention to it. But it's funny. Like now that we are talking about breath, I have automatically my body started to breathe like deeper just now because just by the inspiration of this auditory inspiration. So fascinating. I love this idea, Judith, that we are really kind of guiding each other, right, to this embodiment of consciousness, to this spaceless space that we might call it peace. I love this idea. I'm really very devoted to that. And maybe that's why I do this work of connecting people, of being around people who are kind of invested and they're so dedicated to this type of work of helping, guiding others. It feels to me like it's work of the mother too. That's a very important role of nature, of the mother womb, the mother, the woman. There's something about women and guidance that really resonates with me too. So I want to thank you for the work that you do as a woman playing this role. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful one. So I also have another question about these types of embodiments. So in the contents and the list of contents, you have embodying power, embodying understanding or intelligence, embodying voice, embodying gender or sexuality, and embodying love. So do they all feel differently in the body when
Yes,
we
they
are?
all feel a little bit different, and that's something fascinating that I don't see talked about very much because we really need to get to that mind body oneness in order
Yeah.
to uncover. And again, we're just uncovering these qualities. We're not creating them. They seem to be there experientially within the body, right? That we can really feel the quality of power, we can feel the quality of
Mm,
love, and that gives us
mm,
such
yeah.
a palpable sense of our existence, of our aliveness.
Yes, that is so true. Yeah, I can sense that. As you were explaining, I was trying to kind of sense in the body, locate, the sense of power, love, and then my heart expanded. That's fascinating to see. Oh, I do have a question for you about, you mentioned a couple of times creativity or not, we are uncovering, not creating. So how would you define creativity in creation, creating? What are we creating? Are we creating something?
But it does seem, and here again, just based on my own experience, that we can create certain circumstances in our lives. We can, visualize something and have it gradually materialize. So there is a creative aspect to that.
Right. And that's one of, I was, when I came to Kauai, I remember I was so interested in this idea because I heard so much. When I had this lucid dream about coming to Hawaii and being here, it felt like I was a calling for wholeness. So my body was not feeling like it belonged where I was. I was in Florida at the time, and there was not really a sense of belonging was not there, and I couldn't understand. But anyway, so this idea of embodying that part of me that was kind of looking for this, it felt like a destiny. I call it destiny, or it's almost like something that was meant to be. It's almost like being a tree that only gives, let's say, a fruit tree, like mangoes. I love mangoes. So maybe I'm just a tree that produces mangoes, and I cannot be a tree that produces pineapple or oranges or something else. So is that something that have you become curious about that? How the body has its own, almost like its own nature, its own predisposition of doing certain things or kind of navigating this reality in a certain way. Is that something that, yeah.
I, again, I've, of course, that's an idea I've known about for a long time. And it's an idea that I also love,
Yeah.
I feel, I started as a dancer and I became
Mm,
this,
yeah.
and then I, became a healing person because I had to heal. So I became a person who heals. And
Yes.
that seems to be innate in my nature. It might be innate in everybody's nature, that I don't know,
Mm,
and certain circumstances brought that out in me. And then it
right.
just turned out I was teaching. I started out teaching dance many, many years ago, and now
Yeah.
I'm teaching this dance. you know,
It's just another kind of dance,
that's right.
right?
So
It's
so
just
maybe
different.
that's something, that's my mango.
Yeah. Oh, I love mangoes. Yes, right. That's beautiful. It feels that way. Yeah. There's some sort of almost like you probably heard. I'm sure you heard about no free will. I think what's his name again? Sam Harris. He wrote a book about it, and
Yes.
we heard about so many times in philosophy. How do you feel about that? Because sometimes it feels like a choiceless choice. What I do, what some people do around me. It really feels that way.
Yeah. I don't know what you're asking. What is Sam Harris's idea?
that there's no free will at all.
Oh, no free will.
None. No,
No, I
yeah,
don't
no.
believe that. I don't believe that. In fact, I think it's quite important that there is free will, and I'll tell you why. It's because
Yeah.
when we're traumatized, when we're
Mhm.
oppressed, and even when a people are oppressed,
Yeah.
that's something that gets squished in them. That's something that gets limited,
Mm,
and so I think it's
right.
very important that we become very whole beings. It's not like, for one thing, fundamental consciousness is not, what I call this seamless consciousness. It's not a
Yeah.
deity with a will of its own. I don't believe it is. So it uncovers our
Mm,
own ability to love, to have thoughts, to create, to have will. So I think it's actually quite important part of our becoming whole that we recognize that we do have free will.
mm. Yes. Wow. I have been dancing around this topic for a long time too, because it feels to me like everything that is here in the natural world, it already has its imprint, a blueprint. And it's not really, even, yes, I understand what you said about trauma, but even that, it seems like there's something in us that's always looking to heal. It's almost like looking for the sun, like the flowers in the trees. They look for sun, for survival. So it feels like automatically, almost like as for almost divine design or consciousness design, we lean towards the sun of balance and
Yeah,
healing, isn't it?
I agree with you, Valeria, but I don't think that erases our own individual free will. Our ability to want something, and then
Yeah.
to go towards it. So I think there's both. I think we're both navigating and unfolding.
Yes. Yeah. That sounds more fun to me, Judith. That's both. It goes
Really?
back to duality, right? That's the dance. That's Lila. Both. We
Yeah.
cannot dance if we're just one. We need a partner. So yeah, I love how you go back to that too. So I would love for you to talk to me for a moment about energy. Like in your book, there's a chapter or a part in your book that's called "Feeling the Difference Between Matter, Energy, and Fundamental Consciousness." I'd
Yes,
love
isn't
to hear
that
about that.
interesting? We can attune to ourselves in those, at least in those three different ways, right? We can experience
Right.
ourselves as just as physical matter, with a little bit of breath and thought,
Yeah.
or we
Yeah.
can know ourselves as energy. And many sensitive people grow up just feeling themselves as energy. I know I did, and then
Yeah.
anything I saw, I would feel like I was that. I would just merge with
Mm.
anything around me. And
Yeah.
then I think there's even a more subtle level, which actually unfolds an even more subtle energy level, which I do think is what they mean when they talk about Shakti in Advaita Vedanta. That very, very subtle, very, very subtle energy that
Yeah.
comes with the stillness of fundamental consciousness. So at that point, we're both separate and one at the same time. We have our own individual wholeness and oneness at exactly the same time in the same way. So we're no
Wow.
longer just merged with everything around us.
Yes. I mean, it's fascinating to try to imagine that almost the oneness that was never separated, it's undivided, but at the same time, it kind of creates this, I wouldn't call it illusion, but again, I call it a dance that it's almost like as if by the playful design again. It wants to play, so it cannot play by itself. there's a story about that. I think in Advaita Vedanta they do. It's beautiful too, about that God was feeling lonely and said, "Oh, okay, I just want to dance. I want to have other partners." And then all these parts, all God kind of had forgotten. We just forget that we are God, and then now we are kind of struggling to go back to it, to that feeling of oneness, of home again. It's fascinating, right, Judith? Fascinating to the
It
mind.
is, yeah.
It really
It
is.
certainly is that.
And to me, that's playful too, even to have conversations like this. So thank you so much for the work you do, that you have been doing for so long. And I heard of you long ago, I mentioned off record. somebody that I met in New York, and we worked together for a little bit, and then he mentioned you, and then he came on my podcast years later. Oh, it's just so amazing how everyone, people around me, they're all doing this work. But
Yes.
I want to talk about nature just for a moment. I know we're almost at the end, but you also mentioned that nature as a fundamental consciousness, experiencing nature as fundamental consciousness. And this is exactly how you have it in the book.
Yes.
What is about nature that makes it fundamental?
Well, when we uncover this undivided consciousness, it pervades everything that we experience. So everything that we experience appears to be made of consciousness, nature as well, trees, ocean. And it's so beautiful to attune to it out in nature, because we can really, nature's so porous, we can really feel how that stillness of fundamental consciousness pervades it and reveals it, and animates it as well, the energy aspect of it, animating everything.
Yeah, it's so true. And we are not apart from nature, right, Judith? We are nature itself too, all of us. So can we embody that? Can we become a tree? A beautiful flower, a human flower. Somebody wrote a book about this, like the human nature, it was beautiful. It's almost like a human being more like a tree when you're around them, their presence. It feels so open and expansive.
Yeah.
So to close the conversation and going back to your intention and purpose of writing the book for women, honoring that, the female embodiment in this reality, you said, the power in the belly. And that's something that caught my attention because I wrote it down here. It says, a lack of power is one of the most common limitations experienced by women. Talk to me about that, the why for this.
Yes. Yeah, we're easily overpowered because, we're softer and often less assertive. So we're easily overpowered, and but we have power right there in our belly that we can feel. And once we feel it, we're just as powerful as anyone else that we encounter.
So going back, and that's funny, here in the Hawaiian tradition, they call them the kahunas. So those are elders and then the healers. They talk a lot about the belly. And I remember hearing something like, God speaks to you through the belly. That was kind of cute to hear. And then they held the belly, the belly. So that's about power. That's why they, it's fascinating to see men and women, not just women, but men.
Absolutely, men and women. And men can also obviously be disempowered, often are.
Right. Especially if they are too much like dwelling in the realms of the mind, and just with that concerns and anxiety, fears. That's another amazing, beautiful topic. I have to ask you this question. It's a basic question, simple question, but a very there's a reason why I'll ask you. So fear, is that something that you talk about too, and you address directly the difference between living in a world, let's say, of love and the world of fear?
Oh, definitely. All of the emotions that we can even hold in our body. For example, if we've had a lot of fearful experiences, if we grew up in a home where everyone around us was fearful, then we can actually absorb that into our body and hold it. And once we're holding fear in our body, then of course the world seems scary, seems frightening. But again, as we inhabit ourselves, we can actually release those held emotions. Same thing with anger. We might hold anger. We might hold grief. Right? So, but any of those emotions we can release out of the body. We can understand. It's good to understand where their origin, to know ourselves. Good to know ourselves and to let it release, and then to just be our true nature inside the body instead of all of those held memories.
Right. Oh, I love your work, Judith. Thank you so much for doing what you do.
Thank you for inviting me, Valeria.
I have my hands next to me. I know it's namaste. Thank you. Now, I want to mention your services. So your books can be found on your website and also Amazon. And I would say Barnes and Noble as well. I see here, I think I have the services non-dual meditation, also healing ground, embodiment and movement, empathic ground. You also host events and training programs. So teacher trainings, schedule of events and therapy training as well. So the website's realizationprocess.org. Did I miss anything, Judith?
No, that's wonderful. Thanks so much for mentioning all of that.
Thank you. Would you like to read a passage in your book or kind of add anything that you left unsaid? Any final thoughts?
Well, I don't have my books right here with me, but I think we've really covered quite a lot. It's been wonderful speaking with you. And I don't even think I have anything to add. If people want to go more deeply, then definitely come and visit my website. Come and visit me on the website.
Yes, and I'll have it here. We'll be on the podcast notes and YouTube, all over fitforjoy.org website. Thank you so much again for your beautiful presence and work, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now, Judith.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Judith Blackstone and her work, please visit realizationprocess.org.